Okay, sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself. I thought I was waiting for someone to do it for me, so sorry. Hi, I'm Christy. I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm super nervous. So right now, if we were in person, I would hear that collective "ah," and I miss that. So, but I'm certainly happy to be a part of this grand venture into a virtual conference. First, I want to thank Morel for asking me to speak. I want to thank Carolyn for hosting me so well in this strange times of digital hosting. And thank you for the beautiful bouquet of flowers that I received yesterday. It was lovely. I want to thank my sponsor and the women that I sponsor and have sponsored, and all of you who show up to meetings. And I want to thank my higher power who got me here today and, back in September 6, 1999. My home group is the Wauwatosa 12 and 12. And yeah, so I'm so glad to be here. It was really funny to sit while you guys were all in the waiting room. We were, I was sitting here and just listening to everyone settle in with the logistics and the technology. And it felt like a rocket was about to go off. 3 minutes and counting, 2 minutes and counting, and it was, that was like heart palpitations. It made me, it made me more nervous thinking, oh my God, okay, what do I do? Water, water, water. And so anyway, I just prayed this morning that my higher power would help me say the things I need to say, which is often the things I need to hear. Anytime I've shared my story, it's a reminder of where I came from and why I'm still here. So hopefully it will be helpful to some of you as well. Like I said, I've been coming to Al-Anon since September 6, 1999. I grew up in Texas. I'll share just a little bit about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like for me today. I did not grow up in a house that was flooded with alcohol or alcoholism. I grew up in, your standard home with mom, dad, dog, cat, siblings, nice house, 2 cars. We went to church on Sundays twice every Sunday, once on Wednesdays. There wasn't really any alcohol in our house ever. We were more of a sweet tea, Dr. Pepper kind of family. And, the only thing that I knew about alcohol was on occasion, my mother would break out a glass of wine or 2. And she would say to me while she was sipping her wine that her dad was an alcoholic. And if she wasn't careful, she would be one too, as she's sipping her wine. And that was the only thing I ever heard about alcoholics or alcoholism. I never met her father. He died well before I was born. And she never really explained much beyond that. So I never saw her drinking of wine as really an issue. It was just, part of her thing. She would use to relax now and then when she would have a few glasses of wine. We would sit in the master bath and she would talk and talk and talk. And, I was getting a lot of attention from her during those times. And so I would listen. And she eventually started sharing things with me that a 12-year-old really shouldn't need to hear. And it was a lot about, her past and things that happened to her. And I learned, at a very young age to what to say, what she wanted me to say, basically. And I would say what she wanted to hear because I could see in those early times that it seemed to help her come back from whatever this dark tunnel she was hiding in or whatever. And so on those times that she would drink that wine, which to me, again, never seemed an issue, I would diligently listen. I would tell her these things that she would say, how are you so wise at 12? And I would think, yes, I must be wise at 12, and I carried that badge of honor for years. And then on occasion, I would come home from school and my mom would be sequestered in her bedroom with my dad sitting guard, and he'd be sitting with a TV tray in front of him, eating a plate of dinner, watching TV, and he seemed really angry. and she's sobbing in the bed. And all he would say was, your mom is sick. Go, don't come in the bedroom, just go do your thing. Your mom is sick, everything's fine. But he was angry, she was sobbing, and that was the only information I got. And the next day we'd wake up, she was no longer sick. Nobody said a word, nobody explained what was happening at all. We just carried on. So it took me a long time. That was a mystery and confusion for a long time for me to figure out really what was going on. And no one could ever confirm it, but I'm fairly certain now that those were the times that she was drunk, and that my dad was doing the best that he could to protect us. And, the times that my mom shared the things that probably I didn't need to hear was her doing the best that she could to try to protect me and warn me, basically. So, I don't look at my parents as mean or monstrous or anything. They just did the best they could. But what it meant was that growing up, I lived in a house that on the outside looked happy and friendly and fun, and on the inside was very isolated and confusing and full of secrets. And by the time I was 18, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, but not really knowing what I was sick and tired of, just knowing I wanted to get out. So I had an opportunity to go to college that was out of state, and it was 3 hours away. It was far enough, but not too far, so I could get home when I needed to. And I felt like I would have a chance to sort of start anew. I didn't like this person I had become. I think I must have felt burdened by a lot of things at home. I felt, you know, I carried that badge of honor of being counselor and cheerleader throughout my growing up years, either to my mom, to friends, whoever would, invite me in. And because I felt like that was my gift or whatever. So I went to college to start anew. And I kind of fell into the same things that I'd always done. I gravitated toward the tortured souls, and I played counselor, I played cheerleader. I, I did my best to become whatever people thought I should be in order to fit into whatever circle they were in so that I could be a part of it. Um, I gravitated towards the young men who liked to drink, and I didn't really, I didn't drink at all when I was young, but I went to college and I started partaking in such things, mostly because I wanted to be a part of. And I felt like if I was a part of, I would get noticed by the guys that were drinking and whatnot and whatever. So, I did what we always do, what most of us always do. And then eventually I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of the person that I had become. And I had an opportunity to go to upstate New York to work for a summer at a camp for emotionally disturbed kids and autistic kids. And I thought, this is my ticket out again. I'll go to this place. No one knows me in New York. I can start anew. I can be whoever I want to be again. And, it was the furthest I had ever been from home. And no one could quite understand why I was going. You don't leave Texas. If you're from Texas, you don't leave it. And if you do, you don't go far. And I was going way out to New York. And, my grandmother at the time was very, like, why would you even think of leaving? And her, famous line to me was, whatever you do, don't fall in love with a Yankee. So I was like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to this camp for these kids. I'm going to be there for these kids. I'm not interested in men. I'm not interested in drinking. I'm not interested in smoking. I'm not interested, just these kids. And so I showed up at that camp, and within the first week, I gravitated toward a very tortured soul, and, who'd just broken up with someone. And I felt bad for him, and he was cute, and he drank a lot and he smoked a lot, and I could be the counselor and the cheerleader that I always enjoyed being. So that was in the first week. And the next 2 months I spent, working with these kids, but mostly thinking a lot about this guy and what I could do to hang out and what I could do to help and blah, blah, blah. And if you don't believe in a higher power, you're not sure, I think it's really good to look back on your journey of how you got to where you are today, because I can clearly see my higher power working for me in ways I didn't understand. I didn't intend to fall in love with anyone that summer. It's 2 months and you're busy at a camp, and there's no way you can really have a solid relationship. But I, for some reason, knew that this relationship was so important. And he was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'd never even, Laverne and Shirley was all I knew. And when camp was over, I went back to school. He went back to Milwaukee, and it seemed impossible. We're 1,000 miles away. How can that work? But we carried on a relationship for the next year. And I visited him a couple of times. He came to see me once. And all in all, I would say we spent a total of 3 months together, maybe. But I had decided by, November, after I met him, that I was going to move up here. I was going to move to Milwaukee. Why not? I was just finished school. My parents were getting divorced. Things were in total disarray at home. I had to get out. And I thought, 1,000 miles away sounds really attractive. And this guy seems to like me and I like him. And I'll just do that. And I could tell you, if my daughter told me today she was going to move 1,000 miles away with someone she knew for 3 months, I would panic. But at the time, my parents were in the throes of divorce and no one was paying attention. And so I was able to leave with very little resistance. So I moved to Milwaukee, and I moved to in with my husband and his roommates. Lived with them for a year. It was like a fraternity house. I got a lot of great attention. It was a lot of fun for a little Al-Anon like me. And then eventually my husband and I, we decided to get married. And that was just, kind of like well, do you wanna? Well, sure. After several pictures of Pabst Blue Ribbon, which is my favorite story. That's like the perfect alcoholic Al-Anon, let's get married kind of story. And you wouldn't think it would last, but we've been married for 25 years now. So that is very much because of this program. So anyway, what it was like at that point was, he was writing his story, nearing the end of his story and getting towards his bottom. And I could feel I was fighting some sort of monster I didn't understand. I knew I was fighting something I couldn't name. I tried all sorts of things with him. I tried to shoot him dirty looks from across the room, to basically send him telepathic messages to put the pipe down. I tried encouragement. I tried to teach him that if he would just sip his beer, just sip it and put it down, walk away, sip it, put it down, walk away, that everything would be fine. I tried pushing and shoving. I tried yelling and screaming. None of it worked. And I tried a real heart to heart before we actually got married. And I said, if something doesn't change, whatever it is, I can't marry you. And I swear that I would love to say that that is the reason that he got sober, but I've heard him share his story many times, and never once has he mentioned that little heart to heart talk that I thought was so powerful. So I am not the reason he's sobered, and I'm very grateful for that. But when he told me he was going to sober up and go to AA, I was relieved, but I didn't quite understand. And it took me 4 years to get myself to Al-Anon. So in that 4 years, I tried to be a faithful wife of a sober alcoholic. I tried to push my fears aside. I tried not to hold on to that feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. But eventually I found myself digging through drawers, looking for evidence I was never going to find. I found myself doing the Al-Anon assessment when he would come home, where you study the eyes, you give a hug, and you take a nice big whiff and try to decide what's that smell. And he'd gone to a heavy metal concert this one particular night with a friend I didn't know. I was not invited. Those are 2 strikes. And I was sitting at home the whole night, on my own, having a great time, not worried. And as soon as he came in, he was telling me all about this Iron Maiden concert, how awesome it was. He was in the mosh pit and it was rah, rah, rah. And And I was nodding and yes, that sounds great. And I was doing I was studying the aura, I was smelling, and I was not really listening. And he could see that. And he finally stopped talking and he said, "You think I've been doing something wrong?" And I said, "No, no." But clearly he could see that I was questioning that smoke smell, whether it was pot or cigarettes or what, and worried. And so after a few days, I found myself digging indoors again. I found my brain split between there's nothing wrong and keep digging deeper. And I was going crazy. And I told him I needed to get help. And if he would be patient with me, I would go to Al-Anon. So I did. I went. The first Al-Anon meeting was an open meeting. I don't remember what was said. I only remember that after the meeting, I was the only thing I had to do was find out if I could come back. And there was a group of women after the meeting talking, and I was trying to get into their circle and just ask, "Hey, what do I do to come back?" And I was scared and nervous, and I couldn't do it. I tried 3 or 4 times. I would go outside, and my husband would send me back in because he was desperate for me to get help. And finally, I just busted in and asked, "Hey, can I come back to the next meeting?" And they were like, "Sure." They were so friendly and happy. And it was my higher power getting me to where I needed to be, but saying, "It's your turn, it's your time. You have to make that step." And so he got me to that circle of women, but I had to have the courage to just break through and ask a simple question: "Can I come back?" And I did. I went back that next Monday. It was Labor Day. I'm so glad there were people there on a holiday. That was my home group for a while on the east side of Milwaukee. My first sponsor I found from that meeting, she was someone who every time I went was like so happy to be there. I mean, way happy to be there. And I was so miserable. I couldn't imagine feeling that happy, but I thought, okay, fine. If she's happy, I'll just ask her what's happening. So she was my sponsor for 3 years. And in that time, I discovered that my mother not only enjoyed drinking her wine, but had an issue with her wine. That was what I called it. I think my mom has a problem drinking wine, and it was getting worse. My parents had divorced at that time, and my dad was remarried to a younger woman and had another kid, and my mom was floundering, and she was doing things that I did when I was 18, and it was weird. And she was drinking a lot. And my sponsor taught me the best lesson I've ever learned was how to be a kind and loving daughter, no matter what. And she taught me about boundaries. She taught me that I did not have to call my mother and get caught up in that cyclical conversation that I used to when I was a kid, where she would say all these horrible, sad things, and I would try desperately to pull her out of it. And eventually, when she wouldn't listen, I would get frustrated and scream and yell, and she would cry and scream and yell, and we'd hang up, and it would be awful. And she taught me I didn't have to do that. So I went to my mom one day and I said, Mom, I think that you have a problem drinking. And she didn't say yes, and she didn't say no. And I just said, I want you to know I love you. But if I think you've been drinking, I'm going to say, Mom, I love you. I'm going to hang up the phone and call you later. Because she lived 1,000 miles away. I couldn't do anything even if I wanted to. But I told her that was what I was going to do. I love you. Hang up. I'll call you the next day. And the first time I did that was really easy. She heard it. She kind of was like, oh, like laughed a little. She got it, whatever. We hung up on a friendly note. And I thought, wow, man, this whole boundary thing is so easy. Like, why didn't I do this before? And, then the next time I had to do it, I said, Mom, I love you. I think you've been drinking, and I'm going to hang up and I'll call you tomorrow. And she yelled at me and screamed at me and was so angry. I eventually just had to hang up. And that was horrible. But the next day she called me and she apologized. And after that, I never had to say those words again. Not because she didn't drink, because she did. She drank until she died. but because there was a different, we had gotten to a different understanding where I could be okay knowing that I had that boundary if I needed it. And she knew what that meant, and we would be able to carry on regardless. Um, Eventually, I learned I couldn't call her after a certain time of day. But then, after more time in Al-Anon, I realized it didn't matter what day I was calling her. She was often drunk anyway, or what time of day. So I was able to still be kind and loving to her. When she did die, because of alcoholism, I didn't have a lot of things I had to clean up with her. And I'm so grateful for that. I went home with my sisters. We went through her things. We found the tiny bottles of wine that she had stashed. We found all the things that I imagined I would find, and it didn't make it better, but it didn't surprise me. And I eventually was able to grieve over the mother that I used to know, and not the mother I saw at the end, who was swollen and sick and drinking. And that's all because of the program. So anyway, I think when I started learning to use Al-Anon principles with my mom was when I really learned that how it can work with relationships. And I was able to take those principles and those lessons learned and those boundaries out into my other relationships. I have 2 kids now, and I can tell you, if I didn't have an Al-Anon program, bless their hearts, things would be a lot different. I would be a horrible mother just because I'm so full of fear. And, I've been able to step back and, let my young son, who's almost 19, make his own decisions. And he is wise, and he's happy, and he's a good kid. And that's not because of me. That's because of the Al-Anon program and the principles that I was able to bring into that relationship. And, my daughter, I'm able to, she's 14. I'm able to let her struggle when she struggles and not feel like I have to take over and save her. But I'm also able to share with her some of my own story. Certainly not as much as my mom shared with me at that age, but, I'm able to be there for her in ways that I would not be if I didn't have an Al-Anon program. And with my husband, like I said, we've been married 25 years. And there was a time when I thought I was going to write a memoir, and it was going to be called In My 13th Year of Marriage, and that was going to be like the memoir of when things fall apart, and I want to tell you, I had that idea, and then all of a sudden I woke up one day, and it was like year 17, and I thought, damn it, I was going to keep record of what happened so I could really, put it all down and like, ooh. So, it's been, it's not always been easy. And, alcoholism is definitely a family disease, and my husband has been sober longer than I've been in Al-Anon. But sobriety or not, we each bring to the table our histories and our stories and our past haunts and our character defects. So, for years I did really, I was okay, and I felt like I was working a program in my marriage. I felt like I was doing well, and then one day I woke up and I realized I was doing all of the things that I had done before Al-Anon. I was trying to be the mediator between my husband and my kids. I was trying to ask him not to sip his beer, but to moderate other behaviors that were seemingly alcoholic behaviors. I was, practicing that principle of indifference in a way to harm him, so that maybe if he saw that I was indifferent, he might change his ways or whatever. I did a lot to harm that relationship, and in turn, I suffered. I suffered on my own. I got shingles one year, and I'm young, I don't know why I got shingles. It seemed odd, but there I was in agony. And I was I went into the kitchen one day, and I'm in pain, and everybody's yelling in the house. My kids are yelling at each other. My husband's yelling at them. They're yelling at him. I'm yelling now at them saying, I know why I have shingles, rah! I mean, our house was just a mess. And I realized at that point I was so sick physically. I thought, man, I got to do something, because this is not going to work. I cannot, I can't physically go on like this, and mentally and emotionally, I can't go on like this. So my husband and I sought some outside help. I sought some outside help on my own. And I was able to get a lot of help that way. But I will say that no matter how often I went to see that person, I always carried my Al-Anon program with me, because outside help is wonderful. And I think if you need it, you get it. It says that that's okay. We can get outside help when we need it. But I know I have to do that in conjunction with my Al-Anon program, because I would be lost with just that outside help. And there are so many things that I heard this time around that I've heard for years in Al-Anon, but I was able to hear it from a different person. And for some reason, my ears were open and my mind was open to seeing the reality of it. And that was my higher power doing again what I could not do for myself, getting me to the place I needed to be in order to find the courage to step forward and get the help I needed, but also to be there with me, so that I didn't feel bad about missing all of that stuff in Al-Anon all those years. But I could see that, um, the message was the same no matter what. Christi, you got to get help. Christi, you have choices. I mean, that was the biggest thing I learned. You have choices. And I thought, God, for years I felt hopeless, like I did not have choices. So what it's like now, I was really, really nervous about speaking today, mostly because I have not been in a very good spot for a while. And my sponsor reminded me yesterday when I was talking with her that, in recovery, we don't get to pick and choose when things are good or when they're not. We just show up and we carry the message, whatever it is. And so that's what I get to do today. What it's like is not perfect. Lately I am full of anger and resentment and sadness over some things that have happened outside of my core family, with someone in my family, but outside of the four of us. Something that has fractured our family in a way that may or may not be healed. And because alcoholism is a family disease, the natural course is that people want to deny it and dismiss it and carry on as if nothing has happened. And I can't do anything about that. I can just show up and, be of support to the people that I know need my love the most. But because of Al-Anon, in the midst of something that is quite painful, I am able to, be a kind and loving daughter-in-law. I'm able to be a kind and loving sister-in-law. I'm able to be a kind and loving friend. I'm able to be a kind and loving wife and mother and everything. And even if I don't like someone's behavior, I can still love them and I can still show them compassion in one way or another. So what it's like now for me is that I have really had an opportunity to practice service. And outside of this other painful issue, my father-in-law is in hospice and has been in hospice since before this other thing happened that blew us apart. And I can work from home these days. And so I can go to their house and I can help care for him and help care for my mother-in-law and just be of service. I can tuck in the covers, I can bring water, I can do laundry, I can do all of those things, anything I need to do to be of service. And I can do that even when I'm having a really shitty day. And I'm grateful for that because, again, my higher power is so in charge. If this other thing that fractured our family had happened before my father-in-law was in hospice, I'm not sure what I could do. But because things happen in the way that they do, and because I've been in Al-Anon for as long as I've been in Al-Anon, I know how to show up and suit up, how to suit up and show up. Either way, I know how to be there. And I know how to trust that my higher power is in charge. And I know how to, give over some of these really painful issues so that I can continue to show up when I need to. Yeah. I go to a lot of meetings these days. I'm so grateful that they're online because I can get to a lot of meetings that I don't normally get to when they're in person. There's a great Thursday meeting that my sponsor goes to that she brought me into that her sponsor is at. And it's a wonderful meeting that's somewhere in Nebraska, but it's online. And I've been going to that one again a lot lately. And then my home group, and then, a couple of others that I've picked up when I can. And that has just been so helpful. But I'll be honest, it's also a bit of a challenge for someone like me who really likes to isolate, so that, it's easy for me to turn my video off, or it's easy for me to just pop in and pop out and not really do any fellowship. And I've thought to myself, man, when this COVID thing goes over and we're free to meet in person again, it's going to be like day one when I walked into Al-Anon that first time, and I'm going to be like in shell shock because I'm so much more in my comfort zone, just, being on my own. But I know how important it's going to be for me to get to those meetings in person. So, anyway, that's always in the back of my mind, but yeah, I keep showing up to meetings. I keep calling my sponsor. I keep taking her advice. She's reminded me that being of service should never be an obligation. It should be out of love. And I feel that way still with my in-laws. It's hard. It's certainly changed our lives. I've been over there more than I've been home sometimes, but I do love them no matter what. And that is only because of this program. Again, I can't tell you how much Al-Anon has helped me maintain relationships with people that I would have totally cut out at one time or another because of this, because of that, because you looked at me wrong, because you didn't do what I wanted to, because you said one bad thing about me, or whatever it is, So I don't know. That's really what I want to share. That is my story. I keep coming back because I need to. I'm grateful to be able to share my story during a time when it is when I don't feel like I'm such a great example of Al-Anon, but I'm only human, and I think that's all our higher power really is asking of us. I want to read something to you before I go. It's from the Courage to Change. It's a daily reader for Al-Anon, and it's from December 16th, which is actually my mother's birthday, which I kind of love. It's one of my favorite readings, and it's really fun that it's on her birthday. It says, I was convinced that I had to take care of everything and everybody. I had no choice. But with the help of Al-Anon, I have learned that while I do have responsibilities, there are also many things I do not have to do. I don't have to understand everything. Some things are not my business, and others will simply never make sense to me. I don't have to be reluctant to show my feelings. When I'm happy, I can give into it. When I'm not, I can turn to my Al-Anon friends who help me to grow through the tough times. I don't have to feel threatened by the future. I can take life one day at a time. I don't have to feel guilty about the past. With the help of the steps, especially 8 and 9, I can make amends and learn from the mistakes I have made. I don't have to feel alone. I can go to a meeting or pick up the phone. There is always somebody to reach out to in Al-Anon. I don't have to take responsibility for other people's choices. They have their own higher power to help them make their decisions. I don't have to give up on my hopes and dreams. My higher power is not limited by my lack of imagination. And what I'll say, this part about I can be happy when I show it, for years I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know what happy looked like. And, my emotions were about, I had a opening of about this much, never too high, never too low. And with the help of Al-Anon and with the help of, outside help, because my higher power sent me there, I woke up one day and I was like, wow, this is what it feels like to be happy, joyous, and free. And I had no idea. So, the miracle, it happens if you stick around. And this part about not giving up on my hopes and dreams, through recovery, I've been able to have the courage to do a lot of things that I would never have the courage to do that are very, uh, they engage my creativity in ways I hadn't expected. And I feel great doing those things. I feel like I can be successful in those things. And all I'm doing is suiting up and showing up and putting one foot in front of the other and trusting my higher power to lead me where I need to go. And it's been a wonderful journey in that way. And none of these things would be true if I did not have the program, if I didn't have a sponsor, if I didn't have people like you showing up at the meetings, and if I didn't have a willingness to just sit and listen or share when I've been asked to share. So thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm very grateful and honored, and I will pass. Thanks.